Fraction, alter, action, hunter, interest, bullock, market.
Yeah, as Paul said, disturbing, huh?
Kind of the moment that gives, it makes the whole idea of cult artists sound really just...
It's called words, so he's just spewing words. So, yeah. So you're right, Paul. I mean, it's not pleasant necessarily to listen to some of this stuff.
No, it's almost like, if there was video with it, it would be like a documentary of a man losing, what's left of what he had. And as far as it haunting the band, Roger Waters, who continually wrote about the theme of madness and losing your mind and Dark Side and The Wall with backward messages about Syd, and it just went on, and Rogers almost like he was guilty for, kicking him out of the band or whatever it was that went down.
Well, you're giving us a good preview, because that's exactly where we're going to be going. And I have some really fascinating tape with Nick Mason where he talks about exactly that, uses the word feeling guilty, wondering if they couldn't have helped this guy. And so we're going to kind of chart this, because it's my theory, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, Paul, that there were essentially 4 Pink Floyds at this point. Yeah. There was the Barrett Floyd. There was the middle period psychedelic Floyd, which is actually musically kind of my favorite. Mm-hmm. There was the mega band classic rock Floyd that starts with Dark Side and continues through The Wall. And then there's, everything since, which is just kind of sad.
And do you guys have any...
And it's almost like they're 4 different bands.
Yeah. Yeah, and the stuff even that supposedly got him kicked out of the Floyd was... like I've got copies of, like Vegetable Man and Scream Thy Last Scream, which is just too disturbing to even put out.
That's a pretty good record, though. Actually,
that's been covered actually by people.
Hitchcock covered.
Yeah, Hitchcock does a really good, faithful cover.
Scream Thy Last Scream, Old Woman with a Basket. Well, I think the first 2 solo albums are great. There's
I
really
think so
beautiful
too.
Stuff on there.
I almost wish I had never heard the outtakes, because the first 2 are put together, as well as could be.
And I mean they're good pop songs, and there's some incredible players, like I said, members of the Soft Machine, Gilmore, Waters, Wright, and Syd is still writing songs. I mean, like, this is a song called Baby Lemonade, which is as good a pop song as anything you ever. Baby Lemonade from later Syd Barrett. Thanks for your call, Paul. And we are going to be playing stuff from Wish You Were Here, stuff from Dark Side.
Yeah, we're moving on to the big period where everybody sort of knows. I think we sort of, brought out the side of Pink Floyd that maybe people know least about.
Well, and maybe people don't know that it continues. I mean, like as Paul so well put it, that ghost of the band of Barrett continues to haunt the band.
Every album, I think you can trace back at least one song to sort of that lineage of Syd Barrett.
Hi, how's it going? I just want to say you guys are great for putting this on, and I was just wondering a little bit what you guys thought about John Lennon's influence on Syd Barrett and how a lot of their songs reflected on each other.
That's interesting. Yeah, you can definitely hear, stuff like Strawberry Fields, and
right.
I mean, there's a back and forth going on.
Yeah, there were. I mean, as we pointed out earlier, they were recording right next to each other at Abbey Road.
Right.
Using Norman Smith was a link between the 2 bands in terms of the recording studio.
The key event in the early Floyd story was this event called the Technicolor Dream, the 14-hour Technicolor Dream, which was an all-night concert in '67 in the middle of the Summer of Love at Victorian Palace, this old Victorian glass palace in London, and all of the Beatles were there. They were all in costume. Everybody was kind of wearing caftans and weird costumes and stuff. And Yoko Ono was there, and Lennon was there. They hadn't even met yet, but Ono was doing an art installation.
Yep.
So clearly, the Beatles were being exposed to this, just as, clearly that Pink Floyd was being exposed to the Beatles. I mean, we tend to romanticize, like, the Beatles' influence over that era, but there was a give and take between them and other musicians.
It was weird, because you even hear bands like The Cream, here I am talking in 60s speak, Cream basically said one of their impetuses for forming a band was the music of Syd Barrett. Bowie said that Syd Barrett was absolutely the biggest pop star in England as far as he was concerned.
There's the Bowie cover record from like 74. Yes,
he covers...
where he does 2 Barrett songs, doesn't he?
At least one. But this guy's influence, especially on the English rock scene in the late 60s and early 70s, was immense. And I haven't really heard what Lennon had to say about Syd Barrett, if anything. But I got to believe that he was paying attention.
I bet he'd be derisive.
I also had one more question for you guys. If you could take it real quick.
Yeah.
I was also wondering because I had heard that when Pink Floyd came over to San Francisco, where the psychedelia scene was supposed to be so huge, they were very disappointed.
Yeah.
As I would be too, I think, if I was Pink Floyd, hearing bands like the Byrds, who were not awful, but just didn't have that psychedelic edge that the English rockers had.
Well, I think they were talking about more specifically too the San Francisco scene and
Jefferson
scenes like
Airplane.
Joplin and the Airplane, and thinking, well, they're not really as weird and spaced out as we are, and they were right.
Now, the American equivalent of Pink Floyd, circa '67, was the 13th Floor Elevators.
Mhm.
This band from Texas,
Right.
And the first 4 Elevators albums are very much in a kindred spirit to Piper at the Gates of Dawn and Saucerful of Secrets. There's psychedelic rock has not been done justice in the rock history books. It invariably gets, boiled down to 67 San Francisco Summer of Love. And that's not the whole story. There were bands that were happening before that, 2 or 3 years before that, bands that certainly happened afterwards, and certainly in places other than San Francisco. And it's really just an era of rock history that hasn't been done justice, except in one book that I know of, but...
Wow, that's the second reference to a Jim DeRogatis book tonight.
I spent all this time thinking about this, so...
Eric, thanks for the call. Let's go to Jeff on line 1. Jeff, you're on Sound Opinions. We're talking about Pink Floyd.
Hey, I just wanted to say you guys make a nice pair. Every pun intended there.
Nice pair being a famous reissue.
You guys didn't play Bike from one of Syd's...
Oh, yeah. Well, we could have played, absolutely. And the thing that's beautiful about Bike is that it's got all those fanciful references in like the first minute and a half about, these sort of fairy tale references. And then it just shoots off into that time, that clock factory. Yeah. Which is clearly a precedent for, time.
Yeah.
Well, on the dark side of the moon.
He's got a mystical room. And then he opens the door and it's just obviously they had a field day at the Abbey Road sound effects lab.
Right.
And it's really kind of scary. You just hear
Whereas with, and one of the things that was raised about Pink Floyd early on, I think is still very valid. Barrett was surrounded by these architecture students who were very sort of orderly and precise in the way they used things. In other words, when Roger Waters used a clock in a Pink Floyd song, it was going to have a very precise correlation to what the song was talking about. Whereas Syd Barrett, when he used the clocks in the song, it was kind of like this totally wigged out space effect that had, it was kind of like, wow, where is that coming from? It was a total mind blower.
And again, you can hear that in that thing that I played, Word Song, where he's stain, caucus, glycerin, gold. I mean, why is he putting those words together, right? I mean, you can't imagine in a million years Roger Waters just arbitrarily putting words together for the fun of it.
Absolutely not.
It's night and day.
You're talking about Roger Waters, but and he was so evil earlier, was one of the things that you said. Was that he was not a very nice person.
Well, he wasn't a very nice person to Syd Barrett.
Wasn't he the one that was like suing for the rights and everything when Gilmore kind of reintroduced the band? And was making all the money off of the revival, so to speak. And I always thought he was kind of an evil guy. Even in what he wrote, everything sounded so evil.
Oh no, I don't think he's an evil guy.
I think he's a cynical man.
Biting.
Yeah,
maybe evil isn't the right term.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Thanks for calling.
Jeff. All right, take care, guys.
We want to play one more song. Like I said, 4 eras of Pink Floyd. We covered the Piper era. Let's move quickly through the middle period because largely it's instrumental. Except you start to see Roger Waters thinking about the concept of madness.
Yep.
And at first he comes from way out. And then he gets closer and closer to home. We're going to talk about Syd Barrett haunting Pink Floyd to the